Hi, Kris.
Hey, Leann. How's it
W-
going?
It's going good. Welcome, everybody. This is the last episode for our COVID series. We'll be doing a lot more in the future, but this is the last episode for Courageous Conversations for Leaders and Organizations around COVID. And today we're going to talk about performance management and how really to monitor productivity in the time of COVID.
Yeah. So there's really a lot of pressure on managers at this point. It's interesting because we have to be flexible with our staff in terms of COVID considerations, and that's everything related to technology, being at home with family, taking care of children, all of those things. But also the work is still needing to get done. There's a lot of work. There might even be more work during COVID. So it's really a question of how do we do both as managers?
So hard, such a dilemma. And I know I'm hearing that from a lot of people I work with. I know some of the leaders I'm working with, they really are understanding, they really are flexible, but it's true, things need to get turned in. Customers need to be served. And so let me just throw out a story real quick so we can make this real. I've had a client, I don't know, ways back that um, asked for a report and uh, assumed that that communication made it through to the person, and then it didn't get delivered that same day in the evening. And so she was wondering, what can she do, with this to support this employee, and that it had been an ongoing problem, that things were getting turned in late as far as she was concerned. And then I asked her, what have you done to specifically communicate the exact day and the exact time that you wanted that report or those reports? And a light bulb went off for her. She had not said specifically what day or time that she needed it back. She assumed that the employee knew it was urgent and due that day, because her style and her mindset and her way of being is that whenever anyone asks her for anything, she turns it around right away. If she can get it out that day, she gets it out that day. So it was a big aha for her to think that not everybody operates that way. And she realized, I need to go have a conversation with that person and I need to be more clear with them, you know?
So, Leanne, I have a really great concept that I'd like to share with you and everybody. It's called the Blakemouton Leadership Grid. And I'm going to share just for a couple minutes the
Okay, cool.
model, just so everyone can take a look at it.
Let's
And
do it.
yep, this is a model that was developed after researching, working with thousands of managers and leaders by two researchers by the name of Blake and Mouton. And what they came up with was a synthesis of the best kind of leadership. But what they looked at was two very important dimensions, which was concern for people and concern for results, which is also concern for the work, the tasks at hand. And if
Mhm.
you look at the top left, the country club manager has high degree of concern for people, but low degree of concern for the work, right? We might like to work for someone that's a country club manager, but they don't get very much work done, and their upline management sometimes gets discouraged with them. Now, the bottom left, impoverished management, there's low concern for both, for work and for people. Really nothing gets done, but nobody's very happy. Probably very, very low morale in an organization with management like this. Bottom right is producer parish management, which is very high degree of concern for the work, but low of related to people. So this type of manager can get a lot of work done, but they tend to have a lot of turnover. Now, when we go up to the top right, which is team management, which is this really wonderful formula of high degree of concern for people and high degree of concern for the work. And this is really the best place for leaders and managers to operate from. Now, it's not like you can do it all the time, 100%, but this is a goal. And one of the tips that I wanted to offer everybody today was related to being aware of this model and being aware of yourself as a leader and manager about where you typically fall, at least when you're at your best. You might examine it for where you fall maybe when you're stressed, but it can give you some target about what really does work best in terms of managing people and getting work done. So this team management philosophy is really the best place, and that's your target.
I love
Right.
this model, Kris. This model
Yeah.
is so, I love a good model because it's simple and just has so much information in it. And it's so helpful. I was wondering about the country club manager.
Mhm.
And I know there are a lot of leaders who, while they're really well liked, they are getting a lot done because they're doing it all. Maybe not doing it all, but they're doing a lot of things for their direct reports that maybe they shouldn't, but they like to because they feel like they want to be helpful and supportive. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, that is a major consideration, because if you are the manager and you're trying to be yourself, maybe you think you're being a team player, so you're going to jump in and do the work. In fact, you might be doing more work than you need to be doing, and you might be doing work that really your staff should be doing.
Mm.
That's one way to think about it. And potentially you're exhausted all the time because you're doing your work plus some of their work. And it reminds me of a time when I was at Emo Villa's Hickory Pit. This was probably in the 1980s. There was a moment when I was standing there, I was watching, there were two bus boys standing there, and they were talking and looking, and what they were doing was they were watching the manager bus the tables. And so the manager was out on the dining room floor bussing the tables. The bus boys were standing back watching the manager do this. And I thought, if the manager had that sense that they were watching, he would probably turn around and been quite frustrated. So it isn't kind of a slippery slope when managers try to do a little bit too much. They can get exhausted.
Yeah, that's a good point. Boundaries, balance,
Yeah.
overwhelm, overworked. You have to think about those things when you're the leader, right? How are you supporting your team in
Exactly.
the best way possible? Well,
Yeah.
there's more to talk about that in the future for sure. It's so helpful. And I love that tip. Self-awareness is the first step, because you may be able to be in the team management mode for a lot of the time, but when we're under stress, like in COVID and other reasons, sometimes we aren't always our best. So that self-awareness piece is just so important. And also to remember it's something to strive for. So I want to offer a second tip that's really around the courageous conversation piece of this. And it sort of merges with self-awareness. Ask yourself how clear you are being with your direct reports about what you expect. And are you hearing back from them that they truly understand? Are you understanding the same thing? If you reflect back on the story I shared, the leader was looking at it in a certain way, and the direct report was looking at it in a totally different way. And you might think that never happens, or that's ridiculous, or I was clear, or it was in writing, but there are many opportunities for miscommunication. So the courageous conversation piece and tip is to make sure you actually talk about it. Do you have shared meaning and understanding about what's expected?
Right. That's a great tip. And the third and final tip for today is really for supervisors to find language that feels comfortable for them in starting conversations around getting the work done, that is a shared balance between concern for people and concern for the work. And I'll just give a simple example, which would be, let's say I'm talking to you, Leann. I'm your supervisor. I might say something like, Leann, I have this task to complete. It's very important that we get this XYZ report done. And I want to make sure that you have everything that you need to be able to complete that and to be able to answer any questions that you have so I can support you. Mm-hmm. Now, this is, if you heard the language in there, I'm concerned about the work. I'm concerned about supporting you. How can I support you? Now, this is my language, but I encourage everybody to find their own language, because this has to come from a really sincere, authentic place for you as a manager. But finding language that reflects concern for both work and people will really help. And then it becomes more and more natural over time.
That's a really great tip, also, Kris. And that's something I work with clients a lot on, is coming up with their own language to have these kinds of conversations. And also, if you're not used to checking in with your direct reports from time to time, don't let too much time pass. If you're expecting or, worried that the outcome is not going to be on time or the quality you expect, don't wait too long before you're checking in and having conversations, to support them along the way. That support mindset, what do they need?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I sometimes I call that getting closer to the work, which means that you're getting closer to the person as they're doing the work. And it could be a matter of having specific check-ins. Let's say, hey, Leanne, why don't you put some time on my calendar tomorrow? Let's just check in and see how things are going. And if you can have an outline for what you think needs to be in that report. Okay. That's me saying, let's take a look at the work. And it gives us another opportunity to talk about it and I want to make sure I'm clear. I want to make sure that you, Leanne, have an opportunity
Yeah.
to share your thoughts on the work product.
That's so great, Kris. And I want to point out that that's not micromanaging. And I think that there's a lot of confusion about what micromanaging is. And there is a difference between micromanaging and a coaching style of leadership. And so we are going to not talk about that today, but we will talk about that in a future episode, because I know it's a gray area and it's a worry that a lot of people have. So stay tuned for that.
And I can't wait. Thank you so much, Leanne. It's so good to see you.
Yeah, it was good to see you. And I hope everybody got value out of today. And so look for us again in the future
Yes.
on another episode.
Everybody.
Bye bye.